hi, I'm going to have a panic attack as well because I feel kind of inadequate here. I'm not in the healthcare section. I just wanted to know where my money went. And I did so manually. Well, one is outside of the US, there's no really good way to import that automatically from banks. And the other is that, well, it creates a really cool feedback loop that helps you realize what you're spending on. This is my Twitter account and email if anyone has some more questions or wants to shout, insults at me. I'm also a co-founder of Social Finance, a company that basically got created based on this tracking that we did. So personal finance is a pain, and it's a pain for a lot of people because, well, you just don't know where your money's going, and it's an annoying chore to keep track of it all, so most people just rather not. So if you give them some candy at the end, some way to, like, have a bit of fun with those finance statistics, so some really, really cool nice graphs to kick around, then it gets a lot easier. And most of the other apps look like spreadsheets and, again, are not available outside of the US. So coming from Slovenia, we just decided to do our own app, and I started tracking because of curiosity, first of all, because I want to see if there's some patterns in my finances, if I can really control them better, cut down on some of the losses that I have. And I basically started this system with tags, so that it's really easy. You just put in the amount and you tap the tags for each expense that you make, and it's a lot more versatile because then you don't have a field for each specific thing that you want, like a category or a place. You just tap the tag and you go forward. So we made this app, and they just say the amount, the tags, you save, uploads, and that's it. And then we create graphs for it. And it started producing some interesting results. I first started tracking with all the stuff that I first thought of, like type of expense, the subtype, where I was, who I was with, and it turned out that it was way too much metadata for me to keep track of it all. I was just like, no, I'm giving up on this. I tried a few times, but then it feels too much of a chore. And then I realized that if I just eliminate all that and just do the main type of expense, that it's gonna be way better. And it's proven successful. I've done this for 9 months. And going, I've tracked basically everything that I spent on. I just pull out my phone. It's 2 seconds, just like amount, tag, boom. And then we created these little graphs based on all of these tags. And well, this is in Slovenian, but I translated the most important part. So it's like this big thing is devices, and this is alcohol, 10%. Important disclaimer: this includes the parties I've organized and the alcohol I spent on that. I did not consume $1,500 worth of alcohol in 9 months. Just so you know.
What's Tom Jones?
I'd rather not answer that. It's a code tag, but I can tell you later. So this is an interesting category. So like non-alcoholic is $69, alcohol is $1,500. And it turns out that on food and drinks, I basically spend 32% of all my expenses. So a third of my money goes for food and drinks in one way or another. And it also says a lot about my lifestyle, especially currently, building the startup and everything, that, I spent $2,000 at restaurants, but groceries, it's a bit more than 1,000. So when I'm home, it actually shows that I spent more on groceries, which is this thing right here. This is like the months that I've been back home in Slovenia. And when I'm here, I eat out more because we're the team and everything. So the other big, spending item that I do is technology. And it's really like, all the food and the restaurants really pay in comparison to what I spend on technology. So just, buying an iPhone and a MacBook Air this year, I finally got a sense of proportion of, how much my spending is influencing that. And that gave me sort of, this is iPhone and this is the MacBook Air, those spikes. And this gave me a sense of proportion and actually gives me a financial peace of mind because I worry less about spending out in restaurants now because I just realized that compared to what I spend on cell phones, it's nothing. So this is the first month of tracking. So this I went to Lebanon. So this ran a huge portion, and these two are actually included in those. And it's transport and the plane and the hotel, and the rest are just again pales in comparison to that. And this is why I love traveling to the Middle East, because it turns out that I spent stuff on transport, a little bit on the hotel, and all the rest of stuff I spent on to enjoy there was really minuscule. So this of course is included in this. I used both tags on that expense. And yet it also gives me a chance to relax more when traveling, because compared to the airfare that I spent to get there, it's really easy. And it's also interesting, this is like my personal travel and how that compares to some business travel I did later on. So yeah, coming back, I just included these main tags I spent on each month, and it turns out they're really, really different each month. So that I couldn't establish like a clear pattern because it's so dissimilar, and I can't really budget clearly on transport or restaurants and stuff like that because it really goes up and down based on my lifestyle. So in November, again, changed hugely. I spent more time at home, so it was like, more spending on groceries here, on restaurants, but I still went to London, this time on business, so there's no transport here. I bought some clothes for myself, but other than that, it was, pretty minuscule. And and again, spending a lot on alcohol here because, all the schmoozing with the startups and you have to meet people. In December, again, this changes, buying an iPhone is huge. And then alcohol, happy December. What can I say? Well, Tom just to one of those vices. It's not unusual. So I skipped over a few months here, and then then again, lending money to my relatives here really makes everything shy away. And we were here, so I had to organize another party for fellow startups from 500 startups. And this is where I bought a new device, a MacBook Air, and again, everything else is just, really, really small. So, and the transport really changes. I can clearly see where I spent more on public transport when I've ridden my own car, and it turns out that when I use public transport, except for planes, it's a lot cheaper. And reducing my vices actually failed because you see the alcohol consumption really spikes here with a few parties organized, so that wasn't much different. Tom Jones was fine other in December, and Naughty is basically the sex toys I bought, so this is where it started. So it's actually not me doing this. We built this app, we put it out on different mobile platforms, so we have 185,000 people now tracking this, and 20,000 of them do that kind of stuff daily. So they actually pull out their cell phone, each purchase they do, and enter it all. And this is like, you can actually check it out on this address. This is live when people add expenses all around the world. We just drop a pin, so you can see whenever somebody's tracking an expense, a pin is dropped, and you can see that in real time if you want to check out the URL. And this is actually leaving it running for 12 hours. And that's pretty much it, and I'm looking forward to your questions.
Yeah, thanks for that talk. And it's interesting because we've been talking in some smaller groups about finance tracking and what it tells you. And one of the things that's come up a lot in QS about finance tracking is the way that beyond just managing your money so you can have more of it, what you spend is a kind of a diary, and gives you a chance to think about things in new ways. And I wanted just to ask you to talk about that if you've seen any of those effects, but in particular I feel like you made a choice not to kind of go down to receipt level data here. It's just category data. And I understand that that's a huge benefit in terms of the ease of tracking, but you also now have lost a lot of, it's okay for managing your finances, but what would you do if you could have sort of the receipt level data, which kind of would give you a clue about where you'd been and when you first did something and all of that kind of information?
Of course, that would be cool, and I could produce much cooler graphs on that. It's just that tracking that personally, that takes so much time that really almost nobody would do it because that would take so much time of your day. So in the end, in my first attempt, you end up with less. But it's true that whole tracking, it produces a really nice feedback loop for you. So just like knowing what I'm spending on, and just like remembering to think about it each time and putting it in, that already gave me some feeling. But that's sort of skewed towards the frequency of it, whereas the graphs really help you with the sums and how it actually compares at the end. Because then I just thought that I'm just spending on restaurants all the time, whereas in reality they're not that huge of a portion.
But I guess what I'm asking is, wouldn't you like to know what were the names of the restaurants that you spent that money on over time? Oh, that would have so much meaning.
I would love to, and we're actually making a new version of this thing that's going to make it a lot easier to do that also. Like restaurant level, have different types of tags that you can then easily put in just with another tab. And it's not going to be as complicated, and it's going to be a pre-done system, so it's much easier.
Now, in your in particular, everything's with the credit card. So all that detailed information could be retrievable just from the information that the credit card company has. Your statements. And so you could extract all that information without having to input any of it. I'm confused about what the advantage you think is going through the trouble of putting it in by yourself. Is that an advantage or is it a disadvantage?
Is Slovenia credit card based?
Well, I mean, it's like 50 or 60% of the purchases, but still there's a lot more cash than here. Yeah.
Okay, so it's a lot of cash anyway.
But,
yeah.
But in other parts of Europe, it's not true.
Yeah, of course. And it's all moving towards credit card, but also the problem is that there aren't APIs and the companies aren't willing to share those. And a lot of the times that data actually gets lost. Like the POS system, point of sale system sends that stuff to the bank, it's called level 3 data, but the bank just discards it. So it's not available anywhere after that purchase, and of course the credit card companies don't want to share that. Of course we'd love to have that data, and it would be really cool to do that specifically based, but we're going around that and tying it up to Foursquare check-ins, and basically like correlating that with your Foursquare check-ins where you've been, and then doing a much richer database out of that.
Do you have an API?
Sorry?
Do you have an API?
Opening the public one in a month or two. So yeah. Drop me an email and we'll get you on a beta.
The question is, have you observed or learned anything? I mean, I assume that you're kind of watching and aggregate everyone else's finances. Do you have any anything you learned from examining the general behavior and compared to your own behavior?
Well, to be honest, we're kind of really more getting started on that due to a simple problem. All the tags are custom, and we're working on systems to normalize that. So we have customers from around the world in many different languages. So we're putting in some semantics to really normalize that and put in common categories of it all. But yeah, we have some data, but I don't really know it off the top of my head what are the averages and everything. We're going to be actually doing infographics based on that, so leaking out that.
Is there a practical upper limit on how many tags that you can keep records with?
I mean, that's really, your practical limit of how much work you're willing to put in. So you can basically design your own system because it's pretty versatile. But then the graphs tend to look more confused if you use a lot of graphs, a lot of tags at the same time. And we're actually working to solve that.
Let's take a question back there.
So I've done a lot of this in the really fine increments that you were talking about. And one thing I've really struggled with is categories versus tags. And the problem with tags is there's overlap in a lot of things. So when you look at the data, you have a sort of skewed perspective. If money goes into two different tags, they build two large bubbles on your. And then if you do categories, each individual, you have categories and subcategories, then you can see a clearer picture. But tags also have the advantage of some things do fall into more than one category. So I wonder how you decided. Doesn't that screw up your graphs?
It does a bit, and it's one of the bigger problems, but we're solving that through basically, we went with tags because it's so much easier, because otherwise you have a form and you need, like 20 seconds at least to go through all of them. We're just going to be doing basically tag types. A tag that is basically a category, and you can do like just one category, but we're going to do it like we do tags, like different buttons. And then you can go like, this is the category, but I'm going to sub-tag this with this and this. And that solves the usability problem of tapping it really fast, and we can have exclusive categories from now.
Okay, it's just so you know, so Max tracks his stuff down to the green onions, not just vegetables.
Oh, well. I'd love to talk to you.
But I want to sort of pull back from all these high-level questions to your own experience. I mean, you mentioned a couple of things in there, how you discovered that how much you were spending on food was such a tiny fraction compared to other things that you became much more relaxed on spending on coffee and snacks. What other sorts of things have impacted your own life from what you've been tracking?
Well, okay, let's think of an example. Well, actually, this is from a coworker of mine, but it's also a really interesting one. Tracking like this, he decided to sell his other car because he just discovered that all the insurance costs and everything adds up to so much yearly that it just wasn't worth it. It's a lot cheaper to just go either on public transport or rent it when they need a second one or something like that. So that was an interesting conclusion out of that. And just me personally, yeah, there was some of those realizations where I wasn't throwing a party and there was really high spike on alcohol. or I just like did a yearly of how much I spend on alcohol. I'm just like, whoa, okay, not going out on it.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.